So you've set out to claim what you deserve, created a roadmap on how to become faster, stronger, smarter, and are on a mission to become the best version of yourself. There's just one problem. You can't get out of bed, can't stop playing video games, can't stop mindlessly scrolling through social media, and overall, you can't seem to get started. If you've got big goals but are struggling with procrastination, this video is for you. Alright guys, let's talk about procrastination. If you guys are able to relate to anything that I just said, if any of that resonated with you at all, guess what? You're normal, alright? Everybody procrastinates, myself included. I feel like it's just one of those things that people are either too prideful or too scared to talk about because they want to seem like, oh, I'm perfect and I don't procrastinate, I always get things done. But in reality, I think it's pretty safe to say that most people procrastinate. But with that being said, that doesn't mean we just accept that we procrastinate and continue to procrastinate, right? We need to continue to do things to work on our procrastination. That way it doesn't become a big problem. For my situation personally, in medical school, everyone uses that metaphor that medical school is like drinking out of a fire hose, right? Because there's just so much knowledge being poured into us at once that if I were to procrastinate too much, I would actually just drown in the content and the material and be unable to catch back up, right? On top of that, I have my marathon training where if I keep procrastinating that and my runs, then my entire day is skewed and messed up, and then everything just behind, I actually can't get anything done. This doesn't just apply to school either. It doesn't really matter who you are or where you come from. We've all been there. How many times have you found yourself pushing back your tasks at work? How many times have we found ourselves saying that we'll just take one day off from working out? And this is one that I've told myself countless times. How many times have I said that your diet will start on Monday? Procrastination is commonly thought to stem from two things, right? A lack of motivation and just a feeling of being overwhelmed so you can't do anything. Instead of just telling you guys to build some discipline to just do the stuff anyways or just get over that feeling of being overwhelmed, I read about a different take that resonated with me a little bit more. It might sound a little silly, but maybe you're procrastinating because you're a procrastinator. Sometimes the most difficult realizations come from the things that are hiding right in front of us. In his book, Atomic Habits, James Clear shares some insight about how critical it is for us to self-identify with the actions that we want. He states, the real reason you fail to stick with habits is that your self-image gets in the way. This is why you can't get too attached to one version of your identity. Progress requires unlearning. Becoming the best version of yourself requires you to continuously edit your beliefs and to upgrade and expand your identity. If you identify as a procrastinator, it becomes a lot easier to say, this is just how I am and what I do. But if you start to build your identity as someone who is disciplined, that's who you become. That way, when you start to feel that procrastination bug, you'll start thinking, this isn't who I am. I shouldn't be doing this. Now, building that identity for yourself, that's the hard part. That's what takes effort and energy. So the more you act on this newly formed identity of yours, the truer it becomes. And yes, I'm telling you to fake it until you make it. When I was a junior and senior in high school, I was a pretty bad student. And by bad, I meant that I fell asleep in class, didn't really care, didn't show up to a lot of my classes, and just kind of skated by. It wasn't until the beginning of college where I needed to make a change. I realized that because I was kind of falling behind and I couldn't just not show up to lectures anymore. And I wanted to improve and become a good student, but the problem was I didn't really know how to do that. So what did I do? I showed up to all my lectures early. I sat in the front of the lecture halls. I raised my hands and asked questions during the lecture when I had a question. And I don't really know if that was, what helped me. My grades definitely did improve, but I just faked it until I made it. That's just the stuff that I thought good students did. And because of that, I did it. And then I eventually became a good student. So guys, just fake it until you make it. Understanding the concept of friction and applying it to myself was really the key thing in me defeating procrastination, and it helped me regain a sense of control in my life. To understand it, I want you to think about this. What's the hardest part of engaging in exercise? Is it the heavy weights? What's the hardest part of studying? Is it the complex concepts or volume of material? What was the hardest part of starting a YouTube channel? Was it the constant scripting, filming, and editing? So what's the hardest part of actually getting exercise in? Well, it's usually just showing up to the gym. What's the hardest part of studying? Most of the time, it's actually sitting down and committing yourself to learn the material. What's the hardest part of keeping up with a YouTube channel? Honestly, it was probably just getting over the fear of judgment and just getting started. The biggest issue that people normally have when they're struggling to do what they need to do is that there's just too much friction to start, right? It just takes way too much energy to actually get up and do what you need to do. This is something that I struggle with a lot, but over the years, I think I came up with some systems to overcome this. If you need to study or do some kind of work and you find yourself getting distracted with video games or with your cell phone, that means two things, right? It means that the energy required of you to actually start studying or start working is pretty high, and the energy that's required of you to start playing video games or get on your phone is really low. Dealing with social media, you can go ahead and just uninstall your social media apps with those distracting apps if you're really brave, if you're really bold. However, I know a lot of you guys won't really do that. That's a lot to ask for some people. We are living in 2023, right? So let me show you guys what I do, right? So on my phone, I have my Anki app, which is basically the flashcard app that all the medical students use. If you're a medical student, you probably already know about Anki. I also have my Yale Access app, which is just the key to my door, key to my apartment gym, key to just how to get around the utilities and stuff, right? So I'm gonna keep those on my actual home screen. But what I've been doing is, and I just put this here as an example, I'm gonna remove the Facebook app, and instead of deleting the app, you don't have to delete the app, you can just remove it from your home screen. Do the same thing with your Instagram, do the same thing with your TikTok. I'm gonna do the same thing to YouTube Studio, because sometimes I find myself getting distracted just looking at my analytics and stuff, so that's not really good. So I'm gonna go ahead and remove that, remove from home screen, right? And what this does is it basically creates another friction point for me. In order to access those apps again, I actually have to go over, search, and find them over here, either in the Siri suggestions, or I have to type in Facebook, type in Instagram, whatever. Is it a huge thing? No, but does it add just a little bit more friction so when I pull up my phone when I'm bored, I'll probably just get distracted less? Probably, right? So that's the whole point, is I added an extra friction point in order to take away those distractions and make it a little bit easier to make the right decision.
If you're having issues procrastinating because of gaming, this is what I do. I actually take my controller and put it in a shelf that's really annoying to get to.
This might not seem like the biggest deal, but just adding that 1 or 2 extra steps just makes it a little bit more inconvenient for me to play video games, and that way, again, I can just make the right decision a little bit easier because I don't want to pull up this ladder again and get up here and grab my remote.
Now me and you, we are not lazy people, so don't even think about identifying in that way. However, it is true that humans have a natural tendency for laziness because that's how we evolved. It's ingrained in us on every level to maintain a steady state and avoid any kind of change.
By removing the friction points on the things that we should be doing and adding friction points to the things that we should be avoiding, what we're doing is setting up an environment that is conducive to being too lazy to be lazy.
A major cause of procrastination is being overwhelmed by really daunting tasks that are intimidating enough to paralyze us. This can be self-imposed if you're someone who set the bar really high for yourself and are really aiming to make huge strides. This can also be imposed by your boss, by your school, and really anyone that has control of your workload. The way that I've managed to tackle the overwhelming times are to break down those bigger tasks and goals into really small chunks that are more digestible. This does not mean make your dreams smaller by any means. On the contrary, it's building stairs to climb the mountain that you set for yourself.
I'm someone who, if you give me a really huge target or a really huge goal, I'm not really gonna know what to do with that, right? I'm just gonna take so much time trying to figure out, how to achieve that goal quickly and whatever, and it's just not really gonna work out. I'm not gonna actually take actionable steps in order to go towards that goal. What worked best for me was taking that really large goal, that really large target, and breaking it up, right? If I have a big year goal, I'm gonna break it down to monthly goals. I'm gonna break the monthly goals into weekly goals, and those weekly goals into daily goals. That way I can actually digest the daily goals. I can wake up in the morning and say to myself, that's what I need to accomplish today in order to be successful. And if I do each of those daily goals, I'll eventually conquer the weekly goals, and then the monthly goals, and then the yearly goals. Once I establish my plan, I can just focus on each step of that plan, and I will inevitably scale that mountain.
One of the ways that I'm using this is with some of my board exam prep this year. As a second-year medical student, I not only have to study and do well for my courses, but I'm also expected to be studying independently for my board exams next summer. One of my goals for doing this is to complete a question bank before my dedicated study time starts, which is around May. The question bank has about 4,000 questions, which seems super intimidating and honestly a bit daunting.
Instead of worrying about the fact that I have 4,000 really hard board style questions, what I did was just divided it by how many days I have left until my dedicated study period. So that's only 15 questions a day. Now, can I do 4,000 board style questions and not only learn from getting it incorrect or correct, but looking at each individual answer choice and figuring out why each of those are wrong? I don't know, right? That's really intimidating. But Can I do 15 questions a day and do all that? Yeah, that sounds so much more doable. And even though it's pretty much the exact same thing, or is exactly the same thing, for me in my head, it's not, right? 15 questions seems so much more doable than 4,000.
One of the biggest factors to me burning out in the past was that I never really felt like I was doing enough.
So this is pretty crazy to me in hindsight, right? But just in the moment, I'm unable to actually look at my results and my progress objectively. I'm too emotionally attached to the product, right? It's not until I'm able to actually take a step back that I can actually see it for what it is.
Working out and making progress in the gym, studying and making progress towards my career, and literally just anything else. We get so caught up with moving forward that we forget to look back and see how far we've come. I feel like hiking is a real life metaphor for this. When you're scaling a mountain, you're so busy planning your next step so you don't trip and fall. You make so much progress, but you never really notice it until you force yourself to stop and turn around.
And I found that life works in the same kind of way, right? And that's why it's so important for you to actually take the time out to enjoy those small wins and those small victories. Whether it's through a gratitude journal, through a why I'm proud of myself journal, through taking progress pictures in the gym, right? No matter how you do it, what's important is actually taking the time to celebrate those wins. You might not be where you want to be yet, and that's fine, but what's more important than that is actually taking time to enjoy each step that you take in order to get to that big goal, right? And just because you have really big dreams, celebrating the small wins doesn't diminish that. In fact, celebrating the small wins actually will propel you even farther forward in order to achieve those goals. This past year has been one of the greatest growing periods for me, right? And I feel like I've really grown a lot. And, not in just my beliefs, not just in my attitude, not just in my work ethic, but the biggest thing was just in my attitude towards celebrating the small wins and really celebrating myself, right? In the past, I'd be way too hard on myself, and even though I made a lot of progress, I just wouldn't let myself enjoy it because I was too focused on that end goal. But, ever since I started to embrace the journey, I've been making so much more progress and I've been just a lot happier. If you're watching this video, just know that your goals, your end goal, right, where you want to end up, doesn't really matter in the long run, right? What actually matters is the person that you become on that journey towards that goal. How do you adapt to the challenges, right? When the going gets tough, what are you going to do about it? How are you going to grow? How are you going to see it? How are you going to treat people? That's the stuff that really builds who you want to become, right? And the end product, whatever that is, that's nice, that's sweet, and you can celebrate that for sure. But what matters most is the journey. So celebrate your small wins, celebrate your small victories. If you made it this far in the video, thank you guys so much for your support. I greatly appreciate it. I would love to hear from you guys. How do you defeat procrastination? What do you do to get off your butt and actually go do something? I'm always going to, so I'd love to hear it. So go ahead and leave a comment down below, and I'll see you guys next time.